Good morning, student. Welcome to English class 7. Today we start with term 2, which is related to adventures. Like in prose, we learnt about Don Quixote, how he is fond of reading books and imagine the same. So, in prose, we have seen and listened about the journey of Don Quixote. Today we start with poem which is also related to the adventure. The poem of Adventure, written by George Croscos. Before we start the poem, let's have an introduction on it. In this poem, the poet George Croscos relates to the adventures of the knights. Adventures are hidden deep inside the mountains in all types of form and shapes. The adventures have an excellent ending. People who take up adventures in their life see the world in an extraordinary special way. They feel that they have little wings on their back, and whenever they take a new step, they bounce in joy. In the olden days, knights were daring. They rode on their horses with a sword or spear and fought their opponent for a just cause. They regarded themselves as worthy of winning the hands of their fair ladies as a valuable prize to their valor. They impressed the crowd by fighting with their opponent. Even today, people talk with much applause about the brave adventures deeds of the knights. So today in this poem, we are going to learn about adventures. Poetical lines. First stanza. Deep inside the mountain, the adventures hide themselves. They are all forms and shapes. They all have an excellent ending, because those that live their lives in adventure see the world in an extraordinary, special way. Explanation. The poet described about the adventurers that hide themselves deep inside the mountain. They are of all types of forms and shapes. All these adventures have an excellent ending. Those that live an adventurous life see the world in extraordinary way. It means in a very special way. Second stanza. To attract the adventures into the pattern of habit, you only need to close your eyes and ask them to embarrass you. You can also imagine that you are transparent and feel the wind stream through you, instead of going against you. Or imagine there are tiny little wings on your back, and every time you take a new step, you bounce a bit. Explanation. The adventures are attracted to become a pattern of habit. You just have to close your eyes and ask the adventurers to embrace you fondly. You can imagine that you are clear in mind and can feel the wind pass through you, instead of going against you. Or you will imagine that there are tiny wings on your back, so that when you take up an adventure and put a new step, you seem to jump a little bit in joy. Third stanza. Maybe life itself is one big adventure, if only you have the correct shades on. Back in the days of old, when knights were bold, who with a sword or lance in armor sought romance. Explanation. Life itself a big adventure, if only you wear the exact shade on you. In the olden days, knights were brave and bold. They rode on their horses with their sword or spear in armor, and they were in search of romance. Fourth stanza. It was the age of chivalry, Long ago in man's history, when to fight or a righteous cause, one did gain considerable applause. Explanation. Long ago, during the knightly system, it was in the man's history when they should fight for a good cause. They also gained a good extent of applause for their deeds. Stanza. It was mainly for show, love and glory. They deemed themselves being worthy to capture the heart of some fair maiden, which was the most desired prize laden. Oh, they would strike heavy blows on all of their opponent and foes in a 1-to-1 compact, defying death, as crowds watched with abated breath. Explanation. These knights regarded themselves as a worthy to get the hand of a fair lady, who was the most desired prize for them. They did all these acts mainly for a show, love and fame. The knights hit heavy blows on their opponent and enemies. They challenged the opponents for 1-to-1 fight. Least bother about death. The crowd watched them fight by holding their breath in suspense. Sixth stanza. Yes, it was far back in those days of yore that courage and strength came to the fore, where there was this life and death struggle. Such issues at hand the knights would juggle. Explanation. Yes, it was long back in those days. Courage and strength were given importance first. There was a struggle between life and death. Such issues were handled bravely by the knights. Seventh stanza. And in fighting for their country, faith and king, noble impression on people's mind would ring, that even through the ages are held in high esteem. Those knights in shining armor do know all seem. Explanation. When they fight for their country, good impressions are felt in every person's mind. These impressions are held in high esteem through ages. These knights are even seen remembered now in shining armor. Eighth stanza. There are many legends based on their heroic exploits, a legacy of tales which have been told with much adroit, highlighting aspects of human wisdom related to virtue and vice, and the lessons to be learnt are those of goodness and sacrifice. Explanation. There are many stories based on their heroic deeds. They are an inheritance of tales which have been told by people with much skill. The people tell these stories of the knights by highlighting the aspects of human wisdom related to virtue and voice. The lessons learnt are those of goodness and sacrifice. Ninth stanza, the last. History usually repeats itself time and again. As it often happens, a situation comes when we are asked to do something for a just cause, and acting which chivalry we should not pause. Explanation. Our history usually repeats itself all the times. As it often happens, we should never stop to do deeds of adventures. When the opportunity comes, we should do it for a good cause and act with chivalry. So, dear children, in the end of the poem, we have come to know that how brave and bold people who act as a role in doing adventures, how they face the risk in their life. We should also be one of them. So let's end up our session with this, and very soon we meet with more interesting topics. Till that, stay peace, stay healthy. Thank you, children.